Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is our second part of the same chapter, perception and individual decision making. In other terms, is the latest Robinson books. This chapter is also called as perceptual process. So previously we discussed about mm, the errors and biases in attributions, fundamental attribution errors and self-serving bias. In the previous part we discussed this, and then the attribution theory. Then what does the mean of the perception? Frequently used shortcuts in judging others. uh, Number one is these are the kind of a shortcuts for judging others often allow us to make accurate perceptions rapidly and provide valid data for making uh, predictions. As we have seen, they can and do some things result in significant distortions. And so the selective perception is basically the first part of the judging shortcuts. It's people selectively interpret what they see on the basis of their interest, background, experience. And that is the case with organizational people see their own problem. So the example of the selective perception or in a detailed part of the selective perception is meaning is uh, any characteristics that make a person, an object, or an event stand out will increase the probability we will perceive. And why it is impossible for us to, the thing is that to assimilate everything we see. We can only take in certain stimuli, thus you are more likely to notice scars like your own. For example, your boss may observe some of the people's and may not observe the others people. Same as the things that we can't observe everything going around us. So we use selective perception. Selective perception is, for example, you are purchasing a new cell phone, you are buying a car, or some other things related with your interest. So you are preferably more interested on those of the objects, or those of the person, or those of the events which is more inclined, or which is more interestable for you people. Next thing is the halo effect. The halo effect is we draw uh, an impression about an individual on the basis of a single characteristic. For example, intelligence, sociability, appearance. Halo effect is operating, easy to demonstrate, easy to explain different kind of the characteristics, and based on some specific characteristics we judge the personality of a particular person. Most of the cases the manager use this specific shortcut to judge the people. For example, a person who's very good, or a person is a very you can say that more likely to a gregarious kind of a personality, a loud personality, a happy personality, and so many other things. So managers is very much think about the personalities and then relate their personality characteristics with a particularly uh, link it with the organizational characteristics as well as. So managers may need to be careful not to draw inferences from small kind of the information or from a small clue. Obviously, manager has a very important role, so manager should be very careful on these things. Then the next thing is the contrast effect. Contrast effect is also very important. Contrast effect is means that people are not evaluated in isolation. The evaluation of a person's characteristics that are affected by comparisons with others people recently encountered who rank higher or lower on the same characteristics. For instance, interviews as well. We don't evaluate a person obviously in isolation. So our reaction is influenced by others people who we have recently encountered. So this is the contrast effect. Next thing is very important, stereotyping. Stereotyping, as you are seeing on the screen, judging someone on the basis of one's perception of a group to which that person belongs, a prevalent and often useful, if not always accurate generalization. All Muslims are not terrorists, generalization on the basis of behaviors of few people. So this is also the important point is that stereotype can be deeply judged on some of the important issues or some of the important element like black and white people, or we can differentiate between black and white people based on some specific traits or characteristics and judgment like based on the some of the generalization of the facts. So that's not true, but we can relate it that these are the factors, these are the issues that is in the context of a generalization. For example, we can see that for example we can take that the example that people who are coming from abroad are more talented than the people who are uh, graduated from the indigenous universities or from the local universities. So this is the one of the kind of a perception which is not accurate in most of the cases. Profiling is the next part, and profiling is relatively a second or a higher part of the stereotyping, and this is also not good for the organization. After 9/11, most of the Muslims are taken out for profilings, and this as well as for the intense scrutiny based means that when you are recruiting or when you are shortlisting the people, so you differentiate from one particular portions to the another particular portion. What does it mean? It means that the people from a different region in the Pakistan, and you give the importance to one particular part of the Pakistan, and you ignore the rest of the region as well. So this is also a profiling specifically in scrutiny. You are seeing it in the definition for intense scrutiny. So for this intense scrutiny, we mean that we are shortlisting people based on the stereotype. The basic origin of the profiling is a stereotype. Keep remember this thing. The origin of the profiling is basically stereotype. Once you stereotype about or about any particular object or about any particular person, so based on that stereotype, you profile the people as well. So this profiling is the next part of the stereotype. Next is the specific shortcuts used in the organization is this basically employment interviews, then the performance expectations, then the next part is the performance evaluation. Employment interviews is basically information at the start of the interview is more important. First impression carries weight. It's true, is very obvious. And then performance expectation is individuals' behavior is determined by others people's expectations. Self-fulfilling prophecy is related with the Pygmalion effect. The lower or higher performance of employees depend on preconceived leader expectations about employee capabilities. most of the leaders doing in the organization is in the case of the higher performers, is using self-fulfilling prophecy. You can say that Pygmalion effect. What does the meaning of the Pygmalion effect? The meaning of the Pygmalion effect is that you preconceived the things, like you motivate your employee in such a manner that he can do it, he can achieve it. You give them a positive intentions, you give them the hopes as well. You give them that I believe that you are the only person who can do this thing. You are the only person who can achieve this thing. You are the person who can achieve this sales target. So this is a Pygmalion effect. You are giving them a very positive expectations. So employee can achieve with this positive expectations in a very positive manner. Then performance evaluation is the another part, and performance evaluation we means that uh, most of the cases performance evaluation is judgmental, and judgmental means that subjective in nature. So, and the subjective in nature is but it might be, it would be a very good if the people or organization can put it in the objective manners. For example, if you can give the sales target to the individuals so they can achieve it in a specific period of time, so this is objective. Subjective is that you observe on some specific characteristics, which is related, which is in your mind, or which is related with your experiences, which is related with your mindset or knowledge, whatever you can say that. So these are the subjective in nature. Then next part is the perceptions and individual decision making problems. Problems related with in the organization is the preconceived discrepancies, basically in the current state of affairs and a desired state of affairs. This basically means that a gap find in a particular objective. So when does the gap identified? So this gap is basically discrepancies. Or in other terms, you can say that the differences between actual and a desired goal. This differences part is basically a discrepancies. Or in other terms, literature says that discrepancies are gap as well as. You can also decide that says that a problem is a discrepancies between the desired and actual state. Every decision requires us to interpret and evaluate information. So we typically receive data from multiple sources that we need to screen, process. We interpret the data, and then the relevant data might use in the decision making, and we use it for the purposes of our decision making in the organization. First we identify the problem, then first we define the problem, then we identify the decision criteria, then allocate weight to the criteria, and develop the alternatives for our uh, particular problems. Then we evaluate the alternatives and then select the best alternative. So this is the whole steps we particularly use for our decision making. We can say that. Then perception linkage. I can explain you in details this part of the. This is basically a rational model where we can discuss all part of the decision making. Then perception linkage. What does the meaning of the perception linkage? All elements of the problem identified and the decision making process are influenced by perception. Problem must be recognized, data must be selected and evaluated. Uh, and then we can say that there is a part of the decision making model is rational decision making model, and then the bounded reality model. As earlier in the previous slide, I discussed with you, define the problem, identify the decision criteria, allocate weights to the criteria, develop the alternatives, and these are all the things. So this is related with rational decision making. Well, first we identify it, and then we find out the different weights, and then we evaluate it, then we develop the first we develop it and then evaluate it, and then at the end choose the amongst the best one. So what does the meaning of the rational is basically characterized by making consistent value maximizing choices within specified constraints. And what does the meaning of the rational decision making is? A decision making model that describes how individuals should behave in order to maximize some outcomes. So if we are going on a detailed part of the discussion, people mostly see reality, and then based on that reality they make the decisions in the organizations. People are remarkably unaware of making you can say that suboptimal decisions as well as. So this is also a reality as well as. So when we are observing a particular problem, when we define a particular problem, so we have to see the other steps as well as you were seeing it 6 steps. I explained the 6 steps to you people in the previous slides, and as well as some part in this slide. So you can see that the people is based on when they are taking a decision. So they find out, for example, I can say that I am facing a problem in the organization is the shortcoming of a sales. My market share is decreasing. So first thing is that you identify the problem, then identify the decision criteria. What would be the best decision criteria based on the available resources? Then allocate weight to the criteria. What kind of the criteria you identify it, give them the rates based on the priority basis. Then we can find out or develop the alternatives, then we evaluate the alternatives, then select the best alternative. This is a true meaning of a rational decision making. Then next thing is bounded reality. Bounded reality is a real world model, seeks satisfactory and sufficient solutions from limited data and alternatives. Bounded rationality is a kind of a construct simplified models that extract the essential features from problems without capturing all their complexity, you can say that. So bounded rationality is a tendency to satisfy or seek solutions that are satisfactory and sufficient, which means that good enough in our estimation. While satisfying answer is acceptable, but necessarily optimal. Optimal means that you can achieve what is available to you, what is currently available for the organization. You can maximize that availability, or you can take the maximum benefit from that specific limited data and alternatives available to you. Then the next thing is in the bounded rationality is if there are many unknown weights and preferences, the fully rational model may not be any more accurate than the best guess. Sometimes the fast process of solving problems might be your best options solving problems. So this is also the techniques the people using in the bounded rationality. Next thing is the intuition. Intuitive decision making is the unconscious process created from distilled experience that results in quick decisions. What does the meaning of a distilled experience? The meaning of a distilled experience is that your prior experience. And based on your prior experience, you make some of the conscious thoughts. Remember this is, it's a non-conscious process, but created from a distilled experience. So means that this is a non-conscious process, but actually background works the conscious process as well as, or in a background is the conscious thoughts as well as. So you can say that the conscious thoughts relies or on holistic associations. You associate things on based on your prior experiences, and then you make the decisions based on your prior experiences. For example, you can say that I might not go, may not go to a particular place due to the reason is this place is not suitable for me. Why you're saying that? You are saying that based on your previous experiences, and this previous experience is basically a distilled experience, which is, in other terms, in a psychology, is a conscious as well as conscious thoughts, or you can say that realities are relies on a holistic association as well as. Then the other thing is common biases and errors in the decision making, overconfidence bias, anchoring bias, confirmation bias, availability bias. Overconfidence bias is when you are based on that believing too much in our own ability to make decisions, especially when outside of own expertise. For example, when people say they are 90% confident about a range, a certain number might take their estimated range contain the correct answer only about 50% of time, and experts are no more accurate in setting up confidence intervals than are the speculations. So these are the things that when we are believing too much that we are 90% of confident, but in the most of the cases only 50% we are true. So this is the overconfidence bias, and this happens in the organization, and this create a lot of problems for the individuals in the organization. Individuals whose intellectual and interpersonal abilities are weakest are most likely to overestimate their performances. They are more overestimate about their performance and ability. There always negative relationship between entrepreneur optimism and performance of their new ventures. The more optimist, the less successful. This might be the case. The tendency to be confident, to be too confident about their ideas might keep some from planning how to avoid problems that arise. Next thing is anchoring bias. Anchoring bias is the tendency to fixate on initial information uh, and fail to adequately adjust for subsequent information. Anchoring is that what comes first, what is the first information, and based on that first information, you take the decision. This is the anchoring bias, and you cannot judge the subsequent part of the about data, about information, whatever you can say is related to this. So anchors are widely used by people in professions in which persuasion skills are important, like advertising, management, politics, real estate, and law. So most of the cases, most of the things is related in the first kind of the information. So we can use these things in these kind of the profession. You're seeing that in the advertising, what first information comes to you, you take the decision. For example, you see the ads in which they talk about the 50% in which they clicks about some important information, so people attract to that information, and they went to the shopping centers, shopping malls for that particular product, sorry. So this is the anchoring bias. Then confirmation bias. uh, Confirmation bias is also another part. And before going for the confirmation, some of the other information related with the Anchoring bias is focus on the goals is more important. Look for information that discounts your belief is also helping you to overcome that anchoring bias. Don't try to create meaning out of random events. So this is also another strategy to overcome anchoring bias. Increase your options. So this is also overcome the your anchoring bias. Then confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is basically the tendency to seek out information that reaffirms past choices and to discount information that contradicts past judgments. As you seeing it, that you selecting and using only facts that support our judgment. So in some of the cases, in some of the situation, we might support our decisions, and we might support those facts which is suited to us, which is interestable for us. So we can confirmation bias in the meaning of this. Then the next thing is availability bias. Availability bias is people tend to fear flying more than driving in a car. But if flying on a commercial airline were as dangerous as driving, the equivalent of two part of this explanation, we can say that the capacity would crash every week. We can say that the people who are visiting to the foreigners to the airlines. So this is the kind of things that people might be die due to this air crash or commercial airline crash. So this is the one of the things that the emphasizing information that is most readily available are at hand. So recent or vivid clear picture in mind. So this also one of the element that we can be related with the facts that we are in most of the cases is biased on this kind of the things. Then the next part is the escalation of commitment. Escalation of commitment is staying with the decision, increasing commitment to a decision in spite of evidence that is wrong. Escalation of commitment is when you're taking wrong decision. For example, you're taking a wrong decision, but you still stuck with that decision. So this is staying with the decision is basically escalation of commitment, increasing commitment, as you say. Randomness error is the tendency to predict futures through superstitions. Randomness error is that you choose a lucky number. That is my lucky number. That is why I am choosing this particular number or a particular name, associated a particular name or associated a particular day. This is also some of the errors where people are using in their daily routine life. This is also a randomness error. You choose a one particular day of the week, that is my lucky day. For example, a Tuesday is my lucky day. So this is a randomness error and a superstitions approach. As a Muslims, we are not believe in these things. Winner's curse is the winner's curse is what does the meaning of the winner's curse is the highest bidder pays too much due to value overestimation. Likelihood increases with the number of people auction. You can say that. And the winner's curse is also related with that when the people is choosing based on that some particularly criteria. So this is the thing is that when you give more value overestimation, so this is used in the winner's curse. For example, when in a market value, let's suppose in the bidder in the of the bid of the car, let's suppose auction of a car. So one of the person is giving value to a car, and the actual value of the car is, let's suppose, $50. So the overestimation, one particular person's give the highest bid and it started with the $40 price. So the next person's think that this car has a very value. So the next person is give them a bid of $60, but the actual price of the car is $50. So now this is the overestimation. So this is a winner's curse. Most of the times give the people in the auction a wrong message, and people most of the times judge wrong price of a specifically product. So this is also a wrong decision as well. Hindsight bias, the ability to understand an event or situation only when it uh, happens. So this is also another thing is that after an outcome is already known, believing it could have been accurately predicted beforehand. When the things happen, we think that this is not be in a previous informations, we cannot judge in the previously time frame. So this is the hindsight information. Basically the meaning of the hindsight is that you can say that you hide out the information, or you are not thinking about a particular information which is related to a particular situation. So this is the hindsight bias as well as I further explain the error. Randomness error is related with the risk aversion as well as hindsight, uh, as the other part. But the risk aversion is the has important business implications. For example, to offset the inherent risk implies, except in a commission based wage, companies must or company may pay commissioned employee considerably more than they do those on straight salaries. So this is the kind of the thing is the people think that okay, we are more good on commission based salaries and we are not good on a paid salaries. So this is also a superstitions approach. This is also a randomness error. On a hindsight we can furtherly say that the tendency to believe falsely after the outcome is known, or you can say that you blink and the tripping point. You can also see that the Malcolm Gladwell book, you can relate it. I can give you a short kind of the study material. You can go through with that. Malcolm and Gladwell, author of the Blink and the Tripping Point, in which he explained very much clear about the hindsight. So you can go through it. I can give you a material as well as. So this is the part. This is the today's part of the lecture. So I can give you the others part as well as in my other part of the lectures. So kindly go through with the assignment as already assigned to you people and prepare it for this week. So thank you very much for listening to my this part of the lecture.